According to the Startup Genome report, 42% of startups globally fail. Why? Because there is no market need for whatever products that they were building in the first place. In fact, if you look at the average startup failure rate across Africa, it's a whopping 54%. So the reality is that passion is what gets you started. However, validation is what keeps you from throwing all your hard-earned saving at the wrong starting line. So the fact that a model works here in Lagos does not mean that it's going to work in Ibadan, even though it's just 120 kilometers apart. The fact that the model is working in Nairobi does not mean it will not fail absolutely in Mombasa, which is just, a few kilometers down the line as well. The expensive version of entrepreneurship is this. You have the idea, you build, you launch, then you discover that nobody wants it. Many of us are familiar with people, friends, family who quit their jobs, invested all their savings, and they built a full product. And a few months after that, they launched and they discovered nobody wanted to buy what they were offering. And this is really not because the idea was terrible, right? But it was just because the idea was never tested, whether anyone would actually pay for it before they built it. And this is one of the biggest mistakes and one of the most expensive mistakes and common as well in entrepreneurship. And it's actually also one that is very, very preventable. The question was never, can they build this solution or this product? It was always about, can anyone or will anyone pay for it? And most people, they know the answer to the first question. In fact, the first question is where many people stay and dwell on, but they skip the second question completely. And the reality is that execution, as critical as it is, you can only execute behind an idea that is worth pursuing. So if you are running in the wrong direction, the faster you run, the quicker you get to the wrong destination. So sometimes when you're even going in the wrong direction, it pays to be slow so that hopefully you recognize quickly enough that you're in the wrong direction and then you can turn around. Now, this is something that we're all very familiar about. And this is a subject we're going to be talking about today. My name is Deji Adebusoye. Welcome to the Diary of an African Entrepreneur. We just completed in the last episode in this series the first phase, what I call the foundation work, in terms of building and supporting SMEs and entrepreneurs to get the right skill set, the right knowledge, the right expertise to be able to, channel or power their businesses for growth. We're moving on to the second phase now. In the first phase, we talked about topics about concepts like the fear of visibility. We talked about the growth mindset and many other subjects in that context. Now we're moving into the next phase, and the next phase, the theme is around the idea itself and starting smart. And the very first episode that we're going to be looking at in this series is around validation before investments. And I'm going to give you a couple of data points. According to the Startup Genome report, 42% of startups globally fail. Why? Because there is no market need for whatever products that they were building in the first place. And now in Africa, more specifically, according to the research Tech Global, failure to conduct an adequate market research is usually cited as the biggest and the number one reason for business failures. In fact, if you look at the average startup failure rate across Africa between 2010 and 2018, it's a whopping 54%. And Ethiopia and Rwanda rate high in that list. They are as high as 75% in the very first year. I can understand why Rwanda is also very high, because I know there's a lot of push for entrepreneurship. And where there's a push for entrepreneurship, the chances are people go in. A lot of people will fail as well, but it's something that is preventable. So that's why we're having this conversation. Now, the question is, why do entrepreneurs skip validation in the first place? There are many reasons, but I will name 3 reasons why I see a lot of entrepreneurs skip validation. The first is excitement. The idea just feels right, that testing feels unnecessary. And I'm as guilty as this. When I was much younger, when I get wind of an idea, I just get so soaked in and I just pursue. I remember when I launched the first escape room in Nigeria in 2016. I was in Switzerland. I played the game we traveled to Romania. We played the game in Romania. I loved it. I enjoyed it. And I thought it would be nice. I mean, I could say I did some kind of testing because I took one of my friends to play the game in Switzerland and he loved it. And I took that as, yeah, people will pay for it. And then, I bought a franchise. I brought it to Nigeria, implemented it across, implemented in Lagos. We first set up in Victoria Island, then we moved to the mainland. The business died during COVID. And one of the things we recognize, and maybe this is a story for another day, was there are certain things we should have tested for, certain things that are fundamental for any country that will run this kind of businesses. And those things were missing at that point that I didn't pay attention to. So I can understand why people are so excited. They feel the idea is right and they don't test. They feel testing is unnecessary. The second is the fear of the answer. What if you test and nobody wants it? Right? It's better not to know. So many people would rather just play the ostrich game and just put their heads in the sand. And the third is around ego. Especially in the African context, you've already publicly announced everywhere your business will be, even before you have tested it privately. And by the time it doesn't work, too many people are watching already, so you don't want to back down from it. So the reality is that passion is what gets you started. However, validation is what keeps you from throwing all your hard-earned savings and other people's investments and money as well at the wrong starting line. Why is this especially costly here in the African context? There are a couple of reasons why it's even more costly to go ahead without testing and validating in the context of the environment where we find ourselves in. The first is around infrastructure and predictability. So the fact that a model works here in Lagos does not mean that it's going to work in Ibadan, even though it's just 120 kilometers apart. The fact that the model is working in Nairobi does not mean it will not fail absolutely, absolutely in Mombasa, which is just, a few kilometers down the line as well. The African markets are not monolithic, right? The testing in one location does not validate the whole market. Unlike in other markets where you've seen an idea work somewhere, you just assume that idea will work in other places and your assumption will more or less be right. It's not the same thing in the African context because of the different realities and contexts that you have to adjust for. The second reason is that willingness to pay is different from willingness to engage. Now, African consumers are extraordinarily enthusiastic about free, and you know this as much as I do. So the fact that you got a crowd at a launch event or you got likes on a social post does not tell you anything. It tells you nothing about whether people will pay for that product. So validation means testing payment. You test the payment. Are people willing to pay for this product and not just the interest that they have in your product? And the third thing, which is probably the most important, is capital scarcity. In other markets that are awash with investor capital, whether it's in debt or equity, you can afford to test, do an idea, raise money, implement the idea, it fails. You can always go back and raise more. In fact, if you've run a startup before and you have failed, there's a general belief that you've learned some lessons, so you're even a more dependable founder to back, so you always raise money. But not in the African context. There is scarcity of capital, so the cost of skipping validation and failing is not just a financial problem. It actually can cost you not being able to build what is going to come next, and you're stuck in that loop, not being able to get the right support you need to build what is going to come next. So in a market where capital is hard to replace, you cannot afford the luxury of learning what your customer wants after you've already built the wrong thing. I'm going to give you a good example. Many of us might know Jason Njoku and IROKOtv, and in the same story, there are two different validation masterclasses that we're going to find out. When he started IROKOtv, it was in 2010. Jason Njoku was living in his mom's house in London after a couple of businesses that he started had failed. Now, his mother wanted to watch Nollywood movies, and he couldn't find a single legitimate online platform to stream the movies from. He did not go ahead to build a streaming platform because of that. Rather, he started a YouTube channel called Nollywood Love, and he started with his partner then, Bastian Gota. They did not have any custom technology. There was no investor capital. It was just licensed content that they got, or and they put those content on an existing platform. And within a few months, the channel was profitable. At least it was making a lot of money. There were millions of views. They confirmed global demand, and and this demand was coming from the diaspora in over 100 countries. That was the signal that attracted the venture capital firm Tiger Global, and they invested $3 million in IROKOtv when they launched in December 2011. This was built on proven demand in the market. It did not just build a platform and then find an audience. Rather, it flipped it on his head. He found the audience first, then he proved they existed and would engage, and then he built the platform to follow. Now, let's fast forward a few years forward. There's investor capital, there's VC capital, there's always the pressure. You want to move quickly, you want to expand into new markets. And therefore, in 2015, IROKOtv entered the Nigerian domestic market with a subscription model. And the assumption here is that if it works with diaspora, it will work back at home. I am not sure how much testing they did locally to see if there's going to be a willingness to pay at scale in a market that has expensive data, that there's currency instability, and there's a deeply entrenched free content culture. So in 2025, after the aftermath of everything that happened, Jason himself published an account, and this is not in my own summary of what happened. It was in his exact words, and he said that between the revenues they generated and the $35 million in venture capital that they raised, that they easily spent $100 million trying to win. And in hindsight, the same conclusions could have been reached with $5 to $10 million. The lesson he drew for himself on this is that the domestic Nigerian streaming market never validated a paid subscription model at the price point that they needed. And that was something that was a painful lesson to learn in that way. So those are two master classes. The first is, use what already exists, prove demand cheaply, then invest. And the second is that you do not need to spend $100 million learning what you can learn with $5 million by doing an honest test, on what you are being told about the market. There are 3 questions I want you to ask before you spend, and I think it's going to help. And even if you're already at that point where you're spending, still ask yourself those 3 questions. The first question: is the problem real? And this is the question here: is not do people experience the problem, because we all experience problem. I mean, we all have inconveniences. I have many inconveniences, but they are not. It's not all those inconveniences that I will pay for you to solve. If you solve it for me, I'll take it for free. If you want me to pay for it, I will not. So the question is not do people experience the problem? The question is it painful enough that people are already spending time, energy, or money trying to solve that problem? And how do you test for it? Easy. Talk to 10 potential customers. Is the old tested method. And I'm not saying friends and families, because those could be in 2 different directions. Friends and families will either tell you, oh, it's lovely, it's great, because they don't want you to feel bad. Or they will tell you that it's the worst thing that ever happened since, I don't know, just because they don't want you to leave the comfort and the plush of your job to jump into the world of entrepreneurship. So they are not the best people to ask. Look for complete strangers who match your target profile. Ask them about their current behavior. What do they do today to solve this problem? And what does it cost them? And what you want to do here is to listen. You are not there to tell them and sell your pitch to them. You just want to listen to the problem they have, because in listening, you're going to pick up certain things. And what I want you to listen for: what are the active workarounds that they have today around the problem? What is the existing spend? How much do they spend in solving that problem? Does the frustration come up without the prompting, and how does it show itself? One red flag here, though, that I need to point out is that if they say a problem exists but cannot describe what they currently do about it, it's either the problem is not real, or it is real but not urgent enough for them to pay for a solution for it. So if nobody is already trying to solve the problem you're trying to solve, if nobody is trying to solve it today, whether they're solving it badly or expensively or inefficiently, there's a high chance, I'm not saying 100%, but there's a high chance that it's not an opportunity. And I think you need to pay attention to that. Don't be too bullish about it that you don't pay enough attention to that kind of learning. The second question is, will they pay for your solution? And we're not talking about the purchase intent here, or which is, I will buy. I love your product, I will buy. It's not the same thing as payment. You need to test payment, not the enthusiasm, right? And how do you do this? There are many ways you can, and one of them is pre-sale. Before the product is released, how many people are willing to buy? Sometimes people just put up like a one-pager website and just talk about the problem they're trying to address and ask people to pay for the solution. So pre-sales is one option. You offer your solution at a real price even before you exist. Take deposits, issue invoices to people, get signed letters of content or letters of intent from potential business customers. Something that just makes people commit something of value to whatever product or service that you are offering. And one way to validate this is money is exchanging hands. Money is changing hands. A contract has been signed. Somebody has paid a deposit. An example, there's a company I invested in, and the way that company started is actually very interesting. The person who started the business did not even plan to start a business. Somebody was working with just raised an interest, an inquiry, and said that, look, I need a fractional CFO to work with me. And the person was like, oh, you need a fractional CFO, I think I can help you find someone. And the person helped to find someone, and then told the person that, okay, since I'm helping you find this person and I'm going to be managing and supervising the work this person is doing with you, why don't you pay for this service? And the person said, oh, I'll pay. And the person was ready to make payment even before the person registered the company and had a bank account. So this the founder quickly rushed, set up the bank account, registered the company and did all that. And I think received the payment even 1 or 2 months after the service had started. And then on the back of that, started now actively building clientele. The reality is that the people that had the problem were ready to pay the money even before the person was ready to set up a company to receive the payment. So that's the kind of validation that you're looking to get. And it's more important even in the African context. Why? Because you have to be especially careful about confusing social enthusiasm with buying intent. People are very kind. They will tell you they love your idea, right? But until you test the wallet and ask them to pay before you know whether they are serious about it. So applause is not revenue. Whether you get likes and reshares on social media, it's not the same thing as having a contract. So validation means someone has actually committed something, whether it's money, a signature, a deposit, to whatever you're doing. And it's not just mere, good wishes and intent of purchase. So that's the second question. The third question you want to ask yourself is, can you deliver it at a price that works for both sides? And it's an overlooked validation question. Many businesses confirm that yes, there's a problem, the customers are willing to pay, but the question they never answer is, does the unit economics actually work for me to provide this product or this service to this clientele or to this target market? And how do you test for this? Before you build at scale, try to deliver the product manually to your first 5 customers. Do the work by hand. See what it actually costs you in terms of time, effort, and money to serve one customer properly. And then extrapolate that, calculate what would you need to charge to make that sustainable. More often than not, when you do this work manually and by hand, what it costs you is going to be like the ceiling, because the moment you digitize and automate, the unit economics usually or typically should drop over time. When you reach a break-even volume, right, the numbers should start dropping. But that amount you're spending doing it by hand is usually the more difficult part. Many people don't believe. They feel like, oh, what I really want to build is so hard to do it by hand. I've seen things enough to know that you can do anything by hand, right? There's a classmate of mine from business school that I follow on LinkedIn, and I see has built a vending machine business that has really, it's done extremely well, at least by what I see on LinkedIn. And because I follow him on LinkedIn, I know that when he started that business, when he was trying to pilot it, he did not pilot it with what it looks like today. Today, if you look at that business and you are thinking of starting something like that, you're asking yourself, oh my God, it's going to cost me millions of dollars to start. But when he started testing the idea, I remember that I saw like cardboards that he used he taped like an iPad on a cardboard to make it look like a digital terminal, and then people were ordering on it, and there were people that were offering the physical product, to them in that regards. And it started that way, and then today it is what it is. You can always find a way to deliver that work manually to people. And what you're looking for when you're trying to figure out this unit economics is, if you're looking for a price that the customer is willing to pay that would cover your cost and have some margin, there for you. If that price does not exist, or if the customer ceiling is below your own floor, then the model does not work, at that stage. And this is something Eric Rice calls the manual MVP, manual minimum viable product, in his book Lean Startup. And it's a principle that is much older than that, but it's something that works. It is what Jason Njoku did when he first acquired and uploaded licensed Nollywood content to YouTube. He literally assembled that product by hand before he built the machine. So build the machine only after you've proven that the machine is worth building. Deliver it manually first. Your first 10 customers do not need a platform, really. What they're asking you for, what they really need is results. So whether it's through a platform or through technology, or you do it by hand, you will still get away with it. So here are the key takeaways that I want you to have from this video. The expensive version of entrepreneurship is this: you have the idea, you build, you launch, then you discover that nobody wants it. But here's the smart version. There's the idea, you test the problem, you test the payment, you test the unit economics, and then you build. The difference between those two is discipline. The discipline to ask, will anyone pay for this, even before you commit anything to building it out. So your idea does not need to be perfect. It's hardly ever perfect, but it needs to be tested, and the market will tell you what it needs. That's if you ask, before you start building, and not after you start building. So here are the 3 call to actions that I will leave with you. The first is, if you have a business idea right now that you have not validated, go talk to 10 potential customers this week and listen. Don't pitch, you just want to listen. The second is, if you've already built something and you're not sure why the sales are slow, go back to the first question. Because the problem might be real, but your solution might not be solving the most painful version of that problem. And so you need to figure out if you're solving the most painful version of the problem. And then the third call to action is, if you know a founder or someone, family, friend, whoever, who is about to spend money on an idea they've not yet tested, share this episode with them. It just might be the most valuable thing that you're going to do for them this week. So that's episode 6 of this series on Diary of an African Entrepreneur. The next episode in this series, we're going to be looking at the minimum viable product, the MVP. How do you build the smallest version of your business that proves the biggest thing? Can it work? And I believe it's the natural next step from validation. And we're going to get very practical about that. I'm also going to give you practical examples from my experience, what I've seen people do from a product point of view, from a service point of view, what I've seen people do. Thank you very much for listening to this episode. If you found it valuable, please do share. Do subscribe to the channel. It helps us to get a much further reach. And also, watch out for the next episode as we deliver them to your feed. I'm Deji Adebusoye. Test before you build, and I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you.